it was probably like 9 months into knowing each other, and we had gone on trips. We had done all this stuff. He had met my mother. And he was like, so what do you think about like getting serious? And I was like, I thought you were my boyfriend. Like, I've been telling everyone I know, including my mother, that you are my boyfriend. And like, I was so bummed about it that obviously it worked out. We're married now, but I was like, holy shit, I really misread this situation.
So nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm glad you are.
Yeah.
So you are married to one of my favorite human beings. I love your husband so much.
Me too.
Mark Normand. Yeah, I wanted to talk about being married to a comic because obviously we're sisters in that.
Yes.
We are a rare and unique breed.
Yes.
And why, how?
Why and how?
Yeah.
So, that's funny. Well, I guess we met at this point like 8 years ago. And I was actually on a date with another guy. And then we went to go see a comedy show, and this date was going horribly. I hated this fucking guy. And like, it was terrible. And then, so I was like, please, I'll do anything to just not have to talk to you for a few hours. So we go to this comedy show, and Mark was one of the comedians. I had seen him before a few times, and I just like couldn't get him off my mind afterwards. And so I sent this guy packing. I went home, talked to my roommate at the time, and she was like, why don't you just message this guy? Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? He doesn't respond. So I did. And then we went on a date, and the rest is history, I guess. But it was funny because dating a comic, you know, I'd only dated like finance bros at that point. That was the guy I sent packing. And I didn't like, obviously, you know that their schedules are crazy, but then you don't really realize it until you start dating them. And so like Mark would want to meet up at like 11:30 at night because that's when he's available. And all of my friends were like, I don't think this guy actually likes you. And I was like, you guys don't get it. They were like, you don't get it. Like, this is embarrassing for you.
Right.
But yeah, it worked out. But it's definitely, you got to make a lot of concessions of like how you thought your life was going to look, and, you know, a lot of things like that. Like Mark is never going to be the guy who, not never, but most of the time, he's not going to be the +1 at weddings and stuff. Like I'm, you know, things like that. You sort of have to concede in this lifestyle, as you know.
Yes.
So.
And is that hard for you?
Not really. You know what I think is interesting is that I'm totally fine with, you know, being independent, doing things on my own, going places on my own, and, you know, seeing Mark when I see him and being flexible and not seeing him as often as my friends that, you know, have the same schedules as their husband. I think when it bothers me, ironically, is when other people get involved. Like when my friends will say things like, oh, doesn't it bother you? He's not here. Or like, where's Mark? I go to like a wedding, he's not there. And everyone's like, that's the first question that they ask me. And I'm like, well, that's insulting for a lot of reasons. And secondly, I'm sick of answering this. I'm sick of like making excuses for him almost, you know, but for me, I don't feel like I need to make excuses. I feel fine with the situation. So it's really just like, justifying it to other people, and that's when I start to get pissed.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
It is true. People do not understand how it works.
No.
And really, to be honest, it's better in some ways than a guy who works 9 to 5 because when they're home, they're home.
Yes.
Like they're home all day.
Right.
And you can have a life in a different way than only being able to plan dinner out.
Yeah.
You know? I'm the same way. I have no problem being by myself. I can go to a party completely by myself. I got plenty of friends that'll go to a party with me.
Yeah.
But it is a very, I don't think we're normal, Mae.
No, I don't think so either.
Like as abnormal as they are, we're not normal either.
No.
Right? But I'm good. I've never been normal, so I'm kind of good with that. But I think for the normies, it's hard to wrap their head around. It's really hard. People still to this day ask me, no, Bert? And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Right.
No. When has he ever come to any of these things? No Bert, once again.
Yeah, he's only one guy. Like he can't be in a million places at once.
No. And when you're partying, he's working.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're working, he's not partying, but he's not, you know.
He's chilling.
Yeah. He's just working out.
Yeah.
or whatever. What's the hardest part for you being married to a comic?
Well, I did the cliche comic girlfriend thing and I started being a comic myself. I feel like the pipeline to that is there's a lot of girls that do that kind of thing. And I think
Are there a lot of girls that become a comic after they are
at least
with a
in New
comic?
York, yeah. In New York, I can name a few off at the top of my head, but so I didn't want to be a cliche and I didn't want to use him for anything. So I've been like really focused on keeping our careers separate. Obviously, his career looks a lot different than mine, but I'll say careers, both of us. But like, it's, I wanted to make sure I was doing it on my own. But I think no matter what, people sort of, they have opinions. They're like, oh, she's being helped by him. And I'm like, actually, I'm just being judged by all of you and not helped by him. So It's kind of, I'm like sort of in this weird nebulous area there. So that has been challenging. You have to like sort of make a name for yourself. And I think people are always going to kind of group us together. But like, I don't go on the road with him. I don't have him help me. So I feel like confident in, I don't know, like what are people going to say? Like I haven't really used him at all. So, but people do definitely like group us together and don't take me as seriously as I think they would have if I had been a comic before I started seeing him.
Yes.
So, I mean, whatever.
Well, it happens for me too. So many comments. The only reason she has a podcast is her husband.
I'm sure.
You're right. That is why I started it. 100%. Bert Kreischer said to me, you should start a podcast. It would be amazing.
Yeah.
And, if he had said, you should start selling Avon, and I was the number one Avon salesman in the region, would people say it was because of him?
No. Of course not.
It just happens to be in a vein that he also is in. But my podcast and his are completely different.
Yeah.
And mine is minuscule in comparison to his for size and reach and fill in the blank. But I fucking enjoy it.
Yeah.
So what does it matter where it came from?
Totally.
Doesn't matter. Your career is you. It is aggravating. I get aggravated too when people are like, well, the only reason.
Yeah.
As if I got married and hung out with this guy so that I could piggyback on his career in some way. We've also built a life together, inarguably together, right? And I started a podcast after we had been together for, like, you've been together 8, 9, how many years before you started doing
8 years? Yeah.
Hi. If you were some kind of opportunist, it would have
quite the long game.
Right?
Yes.
That's my point. I've been doing this, 5 years or 6 years? We've been together for 23. Come on now. That's a little suspect if you ask me.
I will not name names, but I did have a female comic say to me once, she was like, well, I'm sure you started stand-up so you could spend more time with Mark. I was like, what?
Okay, you have to tell me who that was.
I will, off the record, I will. But I was like, what the hell kind of logic is that? And I was like, and we're very like actively separating ourselves from that because I just feel like I don't want to work with him in that capacity. Even if I got good enough to open for him, I wouldn't want to.
Right.
Because it's just, I don't want to deal with him and at work, basically.
Right.
And I was just like, what a strange line of thinking that you have. And I felt like for her, it just showed me more of like how she approaches relationships. Right. Like, she's trying to get closer with guys by doing certain things. And I was like, I don't need to do that.
Right.
So.
No, you don't need to do that. That's so fascinating. I think Mark is such a unique thinker.
He is.
Right? He is. And I mean that completely complimentary. He does not think like other people.
No.
He thinks like Mark Normand, no one else. And it's so amazing to watch. I have not had the privilege of watching your stand-up, so I can't speak to your stand-up. But do you help each other? Do you bounce stuff off each other?
So like, if we're out to dinner and something funny comes up, it'll definitely be like, oh, there's something there or whatever. But we don't really like write together, mostly because he doesn't have time.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would love it if he helped me with writing, but he does not. And so not really. And I think like if we do like back-to-back sets, which has happened before in New York, there's a lot of parallels between the topics I talk about and the topics that he talks about. And it's actually funny. We both have a joke about anal. And my joke is that I can't do it. And it's like the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. And his joke is that he slipped it in my butt by accident. And I'm like, mine's the real one.
Right.
Mine's the truth. But everyone always remarks on that. They're like, you guys, one of you is lying. And
Yeah, right?
Like, it's him.
He's totally lying. That's hysterical. That's really funny.
Yeah. And I feel like both of those jokes came out from earnestly trying to have anal and having it be really difficult.
Right. Be like, oh, this is really bad. This is not working.
Not fun.
So how cute are his parents?
Oh, they're so cute. When did you meet them?
At Fully Loaded.
Oh, really?
In New Orleans. They came to the show, the after show in New Orleans. Or they came, I met them before and then after the show. They are adorable.
They're so sweet. Isn't it so funny though? Because you're like, where did Mark come from?
Yes.
They're like very level-headed, like Southern genteel,
yes,
like very proper. They were both lawyers. And then like Mark is their son. I'm like, it's crazy.
It is a mystery. Mm-hmm. Was the transgender woman involved at all in the conception of Mark? I'm just kidding. But yeah, they were so sweet and they're so proud of him.
I know. It's really nice. His mom actually sent him this really sweet letter a long time ago saying like how proud she was of him and, you know, that she thought he was doing a lot of good for the world. And he was like, all right, take it easy. Like, I'm telling dick jokes, but thank you. So.
No, but he is. Every comic is. Being a comic is really important to the health and well-being of the world, I think.
I think so.
Yeah. Being able to laugh at everyday stuff or real serious stuff is so healing.
Yeah.
But what did you do before?
Well, I still have a day job and I work at this place. It's like basically I work with beauty brands and we facilitate a relationship between the beauty brands and influencers. So it's very girly. It's very fun. I love my boss, Anna, if you're watching. So I have no plans on leaving. But yeah, it's a great time. I really like it. Yeah, it's like I get to work with like, you know, like Estee Lauder brands and, you know, they send me makeup and it kind of works. Like I have a lot of people ask me, they're like, when are you going to quit your day job? And I was like, I enjoy my day job. And, you know, it's good to have like some separate finances going on, at least right now in our marriage. Mm-hmm. Maybe like things will change when we have kids and that kind of thing. But for now, I enjoy having like a separate financial situation.
Especially if you love it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I'm like dying to get out of this career path and I'm not enjoying it anymore. So it's like, if I like it, it's just, let's just do it until the wheels fall off, I guess.
Totally. Why not? I mean, Bert has multiple income streams. Right? He has inarguably more than one career.
Yeah.
Right? At the same time. There's no reason why you can't do both.
Right.
As long as everybody's happy.
Exactly.
So I love paths. I love to hear about people's journeys, right? Where'd you grow up?
Sandwich, Massachusetts.
What?
Yes.
There's a place called Sandwich?
Yes.
Is that where the sandwich was born?
I don't think so.
Or did they name it after someone's favorite sandwich?
I think it was like the Earl of Sandwich came over from England or whatever the fuck. I don't know.
God.
But there's no place in Sandwich called Sandwiches, and I don't know why. I mean, that's what a missed opportunity. I should start one.
You
but
should.
That would be my third career is the sandwich place in Sandwich, Massachusetts. But yeah, so I'm from a little town in Massachusetts. It's on Cape Cod, if you're familiar.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, it sounds fancy, but really it was just like a regular cul-de-sac type life.
Suburb,
yeah. I went to prep school. So I went to this prep school called Thayer Academy and I played hockey there.
Oh, wow.
So it was a very Massachusetts upbringing. It was like the most Massachusetts that you
played
could be.
Ice hockey?
Ice hockey.
That's so cool.
And I was a goalie.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you're dead inside.
I'm dead inside and I'm very weird.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Goalies are the best.
Yeah, they're strange people, it turns out.
They are, I don't know why. Why? They're super unique. It's almost like, I feel like I played goalie for 5 seconds in college in an intramural indoor soccer.
Okay.
But I freaking loved it.
Yeah.
It was intense and you watch like every move of everything that's happening. You have to be so present.
Yeah.
Seems like you're just standing there. Like you'd think you could just stand there and stare off into space until they start coming your way. But you cannot do that. You have to be like focused the whole time. I loved it.
Yeah, I feel like that was like, it was like meditative in that way.
Uh-huh.
Because you're so focused where like in regular life, I'm like, you look at my phone every 2 seconds and I'm never anywhere. Like, you know what I mean? Like my brain is in a million different places. So maybe I never thought of it like that before, where it was such like a meditative way to spend an hour, however long a game is. But yeah, I mean, that was really cool. I was actually like pretty good.
Yeah.
And so I got recruited to go to some colleges, but I ended up not doing that. And I went to the same college as my sister in Rhode Island. So not that far from home. But that's a huge regret of mine, actually. I'm like, why didn't I go to like California or something, or like somewhere further from home? I was like 45 minutes from my parents' house.
Just not ready, maybe?
I guess.
If you're following your sisters, probably easier too. Someone's already been there, knows what's up.
Yeah. Your girls aren't in school yet, are they?
One's in college, sophomore college.
Oh, okay, yes.
And the other one's a senior in high school.
Okay.
And we know where she's going to college. We don't tell anybody where they're going, but
nice.
But yeah, they're not going to the same place. So, Georgia wanted Isla to go to the same place. And part of me was like, please, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
A, Isla doesn't have her driver's license. Georgia does. B, Isla's one of those kids that will figure shit out. But if there is a path of least resistance, she's going to take it.
Mm-hmm.
So if her sister was there, I think her path would be easier, but she'll be fine. She'll be fine where she's going. Okay, so you had all these scholarships, but you went to Rhode Island. What'd you do after college?
I moved to Boston for a little while, and then like literally like a year, and then I moved down to saved up money and moved to New York. And people always ask me, they're like, "Why did you move to New York?" And I was like, "I don't. What else am I doing?" Like, I don't know, because I feel like people have this idea that you move to places like LA or New York for like specific reason, and I didn't really have that reason. I just wanted to get out of there.
Right.
So, and I just partied, did a lot of drugs, did like the early 20s New York thing. And yeah, I would say like right when I met Mark was when I was like coming down from that. I like quit doing cocaine probably like 2 months before I met him. And I was like, the timing of this could not have been better. Because if he met me 2 months ago, he would have thought I was disgusting.
A lunatic?
A lunatic. Yeah, I was very thin though. Very thin. So
positive side effect.
Yeah.
Not only were you younger, you were also on coke. Yeah. I've never done any drugs. I'm such a goody two-shoes in that. I smoked weed 4 times, and all 4 times I threw up. And I was like, maybe I'm just going to stick to alcohol.
I do not like weed. I'm an alcohol girl.
No. Well, booze, I'm good.
Alcohol and uppers, I guess. But
yeah, I never tried coke. Coke scared me. I was really scared of coke.
Yeah, well, I'm so lucky that I was doing coke when I was doing it too, because obviously now there's so much like fentanyl and stuff. And I'm like, thank God.
Yeah.
Because I was doing it quite a bit. So
right.
It's very, I feel like very grateful for, I didn't have to deal with that.
What were you doing for work?
I was working at a place called Gilt.com. It was like in fashion, I guess. So
I've heard of it.
But
I've never shopped it, but I know what you're talking about.
And at the time I thought I was like on top of the world. I was like, oh, I'm like, doing this fashion job, going to all these fancy parties, stuff like that. And I thought that was like peak life. And it was whatever.
And it was whatever. So when did you figure out it was whatever?
I don't know. I mean, maybe when I quit cocaine.
So why did you quit cocaine? Wife of the Party is sponsored by Lumi and Mando. I know you guys have heard me talk about Lumi a ton. I love their deodorant wipes. I keep them in my gym bag. I take them on my Girl Scout troop, like field trips. Anytime we're going on a hike or a camping trip, I always throw those in the bag because nothing worse than a bunch of stinky teenagers. And Lumi deodorant wipes work up to 72 hours. But they have so much more than the wipes. They have stick deodorant. They have cream deodorant. They have body wash. But Mando is their kind of men version of Lumi. There's nothing worse than when his junk smells like funk. But have no fear, Mando is here. Goodbye to BO, because Mando has 72-hour whole body odor control with scents like bourbon leather. It's no surprise men are loving Mando. Share the whole body deodorant love and get your man some Mando today. In a clinical study, men who showered with soap and used Mando whole body deodorant in their pits had an odor score of 0 out of 10 after 12 hours. I mean, that's amazing. Men who showered with soap alone had an armpit odor score of 8 out of 10 after 12 hours. That's a huge difference. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like a mini body wash or those great deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code WIFE30 at shopmando.com. SHOPMANDO.com. And for my ladies, use WIFE30 at lumideodorant.com. It's time to spell better naked. Your partner will thank you. Wife of the Party is sponsored by DraftKings. Looking for a super offer for Super Bowl 58? DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered. New customers can bet on the big game and turn $5 into $200 instantly in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code LeeAnn, LeeAnn. New customers can bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 58. With code LeeAnn, that's LeeAnn. With code LeeAnn, the crown is yours. So why did you quit cocaine?
I was just kind of over it. Like, you know, the hangover started to get too bad. I think some of my friends stopped doing it. And I was just like, okay, this isn't really fun anymore.
Right.
And so we just stopped doing it. And it wasn't like a big thing. I didn't have to go to rehab or anything like that. It was just like, I just ended up not doing it anymore and just kind of let it shed off of my life.
Yeah.
And then I realized I was like, oh, I should be making a lot more money and I should have more like ambitions and I should be doing this, this, and this. And so, yeah.
But I think that's a good path, actually, because you did exactly what you're supposed to be doing at that age.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I got it all out of my system.
That's my point. It's just you partied your ass off and then you were like, okay, ass is off.
Yes.
Now let's like get my shit together and move forward.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's really healthy in a lot of ways. If you have that I need to party bone, not everybody has it.
Yeah.
But some people really do.
Right.
And need to get it out of their system.
And I was like relatively safe. I wasn't doing anything like that crazy. I was just like, you know, partying, staying up really late and having fun in New York. Like it's not the end of the world.
No.
But yeah, I definitely feel like I got it out of my system. And I feel the same way about dating too. Like, I don't think I'm saying anything that's going to shock anyone listening that Mark was not, he was a little bit of a playboy before he met me. I don't think that's news to anybody who's a Mark fan. And I'm sort of like weirdly grateful for that too, because I feel like when we met and when we started to get serious, he had definitely scratched that itch. I'll say that much.
Right.
So I feel like he got that out of his system and I got the partying out of my system. And then we met at a really good time for each other.
Right. Because it does get old, that shit.
Oh my God, yeah.
All of it gets old. The dating, the partying. At a certain point, you just go, what am I doing? I mean, how many times can you go to the rodeo?
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen the fucking rodeo over and over and over again. It may be a different pony that you're, trying or riding with the party or a girl or whatever, a guy. But at a certain point, you go, I think I just want to go out to pasture and eat some grass and have a nice life.
Yes, totally.
Totally. That's awesome that you met at that like right time for each other.
Yeah.
That's so
I
cool.
think so. The stars aligned.
8 years ago. I didn't know it had been that long.
Yeah. I think
time
it had
has
been
flown.
Yeah. It's been a really long time. I mean, we met and then we didn't start to get like serious until probably like a year into knowing each other. Like I remember, this is so embarrassing for me, but I remember like it was probably like 9 months into knowing each other and we had gone on trips. We had done all this stuff. He had met my mother and he was like, so what do you think about like getting serious? And I was like, I thought you were my boyfriend. Like, I have been telling everyone I know, including my mother, that you are my boyfriend. And like, I was so bummed about it. That obviously it worked out. We're married now, but I was like, holy shit, I really misread this situation.
Was that like a hold on? I think his brain works different than my brain moment.
I think so. Yes. Yeah. I think there's like his brain, his expectations, like his view on like society and how things are supposed to go are just totally different.
Yes. Than most people.
Yeah.
Which makes him an amazing comic. It's I am married to the same thing. Where you go, he was the same with me. He kept going, this is my friend LeeAnn.
For your friend.
And I'm like, you spend all day, every day, 7 days a week with me. I'm your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Well, that term, I don't know if I want to use that term. And I'm like, dude, I'm 31. Use the term or get the fuck out.
Totally.
Because that's what's happening here. And he was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. Okay. The whole way I kept going, what are you talking about?
Right.
Like, where are you living?
It is so funny how they're all the same in that way.
Uh-huh.
They really are. And it's like, what do you think is going on here?
Yeah. It's really, really kind of bizarre. And I don't think Mark or Bert are the only comics where all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'm in a relationship? Yeah, you are.
You just have to like tell them.
Yes, they're just too busy thinking about something else.
Totally.
Like, that's all it is. And if you get offended by that, then you're not going to make it.
No.
Right?
You're not. And I would say also one of the harder things for me to get over in the beginning was like, I was not a comic yet. So I didn't understand how long it takes to make a joke and how long it takes to get it to work. So Mark would be doing these older jokes about like taking girls on dates or whatever. And I'd be like, what? Who is this fucking girl? Like what? Like, what is this? What? And then in my mind, my crazy ass mind, I was like, back then I was like, well, he's saying this on stage so people think he's single so that girls come up to him afterwards. And maybe he was. But I was like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? And then so it took me years to like beat that out of him.
Right.
Because I feel like men just like, especially a lot of comics and in general comics, I would say like they probably weren't like the popular kid in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they're getting attention from women, it's just like too much for them. They like can't, it's like a drug. They can't let it go completely. And I'm like, you gotta just shut these girls down.
Yes.
Because I DM'd you and that's how I went on a date with you. So I'm sure you're getting DMs from other girls.
Right.
Constantly.
Yeah, it is true. It is like the most foreign thing for them. Bert, when Bert and I first met, I had to say to him, hey, if you ask me out, I will say yes. Because he just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And then when I said yes, he was like, she just wants to sleep with me. And I was like, no, actually, no.
Yeah,
I
I'm not a
actually
guy.
like you and you like me and we have so much fun. You don't even understand what liking me means, right?
Right.
Because no girl has ever been that. This was way before. I mean, it's 23 years ago. This is before he was a comic, but yeah, they're interesting little brains. They really don't get it a lot of the time.
No.
Or they get it too much where they think everybody wants to sleep with them.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah.
not actually.
Not really.
No. Maybe one in a group of 20.
Yeah.
It's not everybody. Bert, forever, for the longest time when women started really paying attention to him on the road, he would call me and go, oh, there's so many women jocking on me. They're just all over me. And I'm like, dude, I'm your wife.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm your best friend, but I'm also your wife. So what would you like me to say when women are knocking on your hotel door? Good for you.
Right.
Wow. That's
so cool.
exactly.
He did it.
Right? I'm so happy for you, honey.
Yeah.
But he had no understanding that he was so excited that he was a wanted commodity.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's so crazy.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, they like the spotlight and that's just a different type of spotlight.
It's true.
So
it's true.
yeah, it took me like a really long time, to be honest, to not be insecure about that for sure.
Oh,
And
yeah?
now I'm in a good place. Like we're literally married. We're publicly married.
Yeah.
So if like a girl's like going after him, I'm like, well, you're a piece of shit to the girl.
Yeah.
And whatever. But I'm like, I think like for a long time, like before we were engaged, I was just like, what is he like keeping the door open for these women kind of thing? And he wasn't. He's a sweet guy. He's not that kind of person. But I just know how like women are and I know how guys are. And like the way that we met was me messaging him. So I'm like, what if another girl does the same thing I did?
Right.
Because like in his mind, he's like, oh, all these messages are so harmless. And I'm like, well, mine wasn't. So,
right. It's a really good perspective. And you're wise to understand that his perspective might be a little different.
Yeah.
And that isn't what his intention is what really matters,
Yeah.
because he's not behaving badly.
No.
And if these women are showing up, that's not entirely his fault.
Right.
He can't help someone DMing him.
Right. And like I get DMs too, but I mean, I just laugh about them, obviously. But
Yeah, right. Right?
Yeah.
I don't get any DMs like that.
No DMs.
No DMs of like, hey, baby. No, nothing like that.
I've never been sent a dick pic. I don't know if I should be taking offense to that or not. I'm not inviting your dick pics, but I am. I just like, I have so many girlfriends that are like, oh, when you get dick pics from like random, I'm like, no, I really don't.
No, I never have either.
I never
Although I
have.
did get one that was sent to me by accident.
Oh.
He put the last digit of my phone number was wrong.
Oh my
and
God.
was talking about last night and all this shit, and then sent me this picture. But his dick was in pants, just hard.
Oh, wow.
And like you could see you could see everything except not everything.
Yeah.
And just kept having this like chat with me.
Oh
and
my
then
God.
I was like, I think you have the wrong number. He was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. He was so embarrassed. That's the only dick pic I've
That
ever
poor guy. That I'm sure the girl gave him the wrong number and it just happened to be yours.
It was me, right? Oh, lucky me.
Yeah.
So I got a dick pic by accident. That's it. I do get some from Bert though. Does that count?
Yeah. No, well, yeah, I guess that counts. Yeah.
So how long is the longest you've been away from each other?
Probably like 3 weeks, I guess. Yeah, something like that.
Same here.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
And you start it's too long.
It's too long. Because when Bert comes back and he's been gone that long, so we have something we call re-entry.
Okay.
Do you have anything like that where there's like a period of adjustment when he's been on the road?
Yeah.
It'll happen more when you have kids.
Yeah.
Because you get into a routine. Whoever's at home with the kids gets in a routine with the kids, and then whoever comes back disrupts the routine. And that disrupting of the routine also disrupts the person who's disrupting the routine.
Yeah.
So it's this very complicated, like transitional moment that for us would happen for like 12 to 36 hours, depending on how long you'd been gone and what was going on in the house.
Yeah.
And it took a while for both of us to figure out what was happening and how to deal with it. Do you guys have anything like that?
Sometimes it can be like a little awkward almost for like a few hours, but it hasn't been, I think because like we don't have kids, we don't have such a schedule. Like I think when I do have, I've actually like thought about this before. I'm like, when I have a baby and Mark comes home and I have the baby on a nap schedule and all this stuff, he's not going to like understand those things because he's a guy.
Yeah.
So like I'm going to tell him these things and I just feel like it's going to be a lot more like what you described.
Yeah.
Right now, not so much. It can be like a little awkward for like a few hours and then we kind of get back into it. But it's not, I think like that's part of the charm of dating a comic too, because you do have these times away from each other and then they come back and it feels like you're like nervous to see them. And you'll like do your hair and like put on a nice outfit. You're like, like for your husband. It's nice.
Yeah, I agree. It's cool. It's kind of like you're still dating in a certain way.
Yeah.
And I'm just an independent person, an only child. I like being alone.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be alone. You know, I don't want to not have a partner.
Yeah.
But to have a partner that leaves and then comes back really works for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. And so you moved to New York and you started partying and you worked at
Gilt.
Gilt.
G-I-L-T.
G-I-L-T. And then how did you get into this position you're in now?
So, well, I worked at LinkedIn for a little while after that.
Okay.
And I really did not like that job.
No? Why not?
No, I just felt like it was before I did stand up. And so I just felt very ordinary. Like I just was like, is this my life? Like I'm just going to this office building, doing the most like menial tasks ever. Maybe having like a beer with some coworkers and then going home. Like that's my life in New York now. This sucks.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't even working in like an industry there. Like at least in Gilt, I was in fashion and it was fun. I was getting paid like nickels, but still. And then, so I left that job and then I realized I wanted to get back into like working at least with like brands and things that I was organically interested in. And so that's how I got this job now. And I've been at this job for like 5 years. So it's my second longest relationship is this job.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
Yeah. It's been like really good to me the whole time. And, I like girly stuff, it turns out. And one thing that's a big pet peeve of mine that I've seen in like modern day feminism is that a lot of people think that if you don't have like this boring, stale job, that you're not like a real feminist. And I'm like,
What?
Who cares? Like, I don't need to be like a
Wait, who
lawyer.
says that?
I just feel like maybe this is me projecting my own things on people, but I feel like people are really impressed with like, they'll be like, oh, my friend is like a lawyer for this really dry, boring thing. And I'm like, cool, I work in makeup.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make me better or worse. It just makes me someone who's interested in what I'm interested in, and I'm not going to apologize for it. So
That's because you live in New York.
yeah, I think it might be a New York thing. There's a
think
lot of
so.
like elitism.
There is. I lived in New York for 4 years, and that was probably my biggest challenge. It's one of the reasons I left.
Yeah.
Is because I never felt good enough in that city to just draw breath.
Yeah.
Like, you don't actually deserve to draw breath, is how I felt in that city. I like with my peer group.
Yeah.
You know, walking around the city and talking to people on the street, and, you know, I could talk to anybody. I mean, I'm from such a small town in Georgia. But when I tried to make friends, I just couldn't find them because I felt I hadn't read the right pieces of literature.
Yeah.
I didn't read the New York Times every day. I couldn't talk about fashion, and I just don't know about that shit. And by the way, not interested.
Yeah.
So I don't, that wasn't who I was. But
yeah.
some of that might be New York.
I think looking back on it, because like LinkedIn has a lot of great benefits. It's, you know, a good place to work by a lot of people's measurements. But I was so much more like the New York ego at that point, where I hated, it sounds so stupid, but I hated like what you're describing, going to a party and people asking me what I did and saying I work at LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I hated that.
Yeah.
Where like they would be like, I work at this, you know, art house and we sell this really obnoxious person or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would have to like be impressed by that. But looking back on it, I think if I was at a different part of my life, I wouldn't have cared so much.
Yeah.
And especially if I had been doing stand-up,
Right.
I wouldn't have cared so much because I would have been like, well, I'm a stand-up and this is what I do for money.
Yes.
But yeah, I guess like New York really values those kind of things. And you are your job, which is really lame and stupid and gets like, you know, sillier as I say it out loud more. But
it's very upper class to be your job. You know, that's very elite and upper class. And LA has a lot of pockets of that. There's a lot of circles in LA that are that for sure. I hear a lot of moms that have kids in really fancy private schools, and the hoops and the stuff and the sweatshirt that the kid has to, the car they drive, all this bullshit where I go, that's a bunch of bullshit. Why are you doing that? The kid's 16, and why are you worried about that in your peer group?
Yeah.
But then you can go like literally down the street and that whole culture doesn't exist here. LA is so spread out, and I found it much easier to find your people here, and those people still exist here that are all about fashion and all about what's your job and all about I work for the nonprofit that saves the world.
Right.
And I love that you work for the nonprofit that saves the world. Thank you for doing that work for me.
Sure.
But I am no less important because I stay at home and drive my kids in carpool.
Exactly.
And I find it's a little easier here to bridge those two, that the two can communicate and hang out.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find that in New York. I just couldn't find it.
And I
love New York.
Yeah. Like I definitely feel that though. Like I have a friend who she's a new mom and she moved down south. They're living in North Carolina now. And she came back up to visit us, and she was like, she's taking a break from work, which is more than fine. You're a new mom. Like, go be a mom. That's great. It's a wonderful time in your life.
Yeah.
And she was just like, I just caught her like apologizing so much. She's like, well, I'm taking a break from work, but like, I'm going to get back into it. Like, I'm not just going to like say it. And I'm like, you can just do what makes sense for you and your family and do not apologize for it. Like we're all, you know, making our own decisions in life now. And you shouldn't feel like inferior because some lonely person has a high paying job or whatever. Like you have a husband and a daughter and a wonderful life and don't apologize for it.
And exactly. Don't feel empowered by it.
Yeah.
Be proud of it.
Totally.
You know, I agree.
Yeah.
Are you guys, you're going to stay in New York, aren't you? Mark seems such a New York fella.
Yes. So we just bought a place. So we're we're renovating it. It's been a fucking nightmare.
It has?
Yes, it's been awful. But we're allegedly moving in in the spring. So next year. But
what are you doing in the remodel? Like how much of a remodel?
The whole damn thing. I mean, the place was like rotting from the inside out. So we needed to do absolutely everything. Like we needed to build like floors, but like the joists under the floor, like the whole thing, everything.
Wow.
The electrical. So it's been really awful. So we've been working on that for like a year and a half, but like talk about privileged problems. I'm like, my brownstone isn't ready. Like, so it's like, whatever. We'll move in there and it'll be great. And so I'm really looking forward to like that quality of life, to have a little bit more space. And it has a backyard, which is like unheard of in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So we're excited about that. I think like that will be our primary residence, but we've also been thinking about maybe getting a second home in like New Orleans or something like that.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I love New Orleans.
Me too.
I'd never been there till Fully Loaded.
Yeah.
And we were only there for a few hours, but God, it's a great city.
Yeah, it's
Beautiful.
cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
What I love about New Orleans that's very different from New York is that all of the like community things they put on, like concerts, they're very multi-generational. Like you'll see people that are like my parents' age, you'll see 21-year-olds at the same event. And I just love that. Like, I think that's really cool. Where in New York, it's like there's things for 20-year-olds and then everything else is kind of boring and whatever. So you can't like find that in between.
That's cool.
Yeah. You can really like grow old and have fun in New Orleans.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, grow old and have fun.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm halfway to old. Let's see. What else can we talk about, Mae? What do you like about stand-up?
Well, I feel like I'm more of a writer than I am a stand-up. I'm coming to find out.
Yeah.
But I mean, I like the community around stand-up. You meet a lot of really fun people and it's just a good time. I like when something bad happens to me that I'm like, okay, good, I can make this into a joke, as opposed to being like, damn, that shitty thing happened to me. So it feels like you're always writing, but never writing. Also, it just kind of like, for me, my writing style, it just sort of like comes to me. And if it doesn't work immediately, I kind of throw it out. Or like where Mark will be like obsessing over this one thing which is probably why he's really successful, but he'll obsess over something for like 6 months and like get it to work and change a syllable here or there. I'm much more like relaxed with my approach to it. But I mean, it's like, there's nothing better than making the crowd laugh. It's really fun. It's like a nice high, I guess, without having to do drugs, which is good. And I like having like a goal. Like I'm recording a half hour.
Oh, great.
In the spring. And the reason I'm doing it is because I have a lot of material about like just getting married, wanting kids, not having them yet. A lot of things about that time in my life. And so I was like, a lot of these jokes aren't going to work for me. Hopefully I'm hoping to be pregnant in the next like 2 years or so. And so I'm like, I just want to offload this material. And so I like looking at it like, this sounds so like pretentious and ridiculous, but like chapters of my life. And so it's fun to sort of just like put that into a project I'm really proud of. And will probably get torn to shreds on the internet, but that's like,
that doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter.
You can't listen to any of that. Well, you can't listen to any of that because then sometimes if you don't watch out, it'll start affecting how you feel about yourself or what art you're creating. And your art should be a real expression of you,
Right.
And I love that idea that you're thinking about your life in chapters, because now I'm way ahead of you. I'm 53. Your life is chapters. In your 20s, you did exactly what you're supposed to be doing. You figure out who you are. You figure out what you like, what you don't like. You figure out what you want in life in every way, in a job, in a partner, in friends, in yourself. And then your 30s, you get to start applying that.
Yeah.
And then the 40s, you really relax into living that, right? And that is a very distinct chapters. And then your 50s, everything just starts falling apart. Not really, but in my 50s now, we're about to be empty nesters and we get to kind of reinvent ourselves a little bit. I get to reinvent my body by saying menopause has misshapen everything. So it's up to me what I look like. I have to work out to look a certain way. I have to eat to look a certain way. I could get away with that shit in chapters before.
Right.
But there's so much meat on that bone in each kind of phase that you're talking about before you have kids, after you have kids. In your marriage. Those are two very distinct periods. I love that you're thinking about your art in that way. I think that's very smart.
Yeah, I like it. And I don't want to be, I think a lot of comedians, they like get their audience when they're young and then they don't know how to like transition out of that phase of their life. So there will be, you know, someone who is in a different phase of their real life, but still trying to attract people that are 21. And I want to be able to, you know, like grow with my audience.
Yeah.
You know,
kind of talk to your peer group. And then also, if you think about it, if you talk about your chapters like you're talking about, I know at least with my podcast, I have 20 somethings that will email or message me and say, I'm so glad you're talking about this because this is my future.
Oh, that's cool.
Right? It's not happening now, but that's my next phase, right? Or that's 2 phases down the line. It's cool to know that. So if you think about it that way, then you'll have hopefully a demographic that starts in the early 20s and then keeps growing on the upper end with you.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Like you don't really hear much about menopause, actually, like what you just mentioned. Like no one really talks about that.
And they should. They should,
because it's all gonna happen to us.
51% of the population? Yeah, it's gonna happen to everybody. What I find fascinating about menopause, I feel like they should give a man like a pamphlet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why hasn't anybody written a pamphlet? A pamphlet about what happens right after your wife has a baby.
Yeah.
And not the like pretty, fluffy, and the minor, you know, I was talking about this yesterday downstairs. I was like, you know, you have a baby and they're like, no sex for 6 weeks. Bert was like, okay, 6 weeks and 1 hour.
Yeah.
And ready.
Like, that's not how it works.
No. I'm like, how? What if I need 7?
Yeah.
Like you're on a 6-week, you need to understand maybe what's happened like physiologically and apply it to your penis.
Right.
And then talk to me about having sex after 6 weeks. Like you should get some kind of pamphlet that says, here's where you should be patient, kind, understanding. Here's what's happening in her body. And this is why she is throwing a plate at you when you walk in the door. You know, it's not about you. As I think men are so linear and logical in a lot of ways. And they don't have estrogen like we do. I mean, they don't have some of these hormonal experiences of having a period every month and all the mood swings and the depression or whatever, fill in the blank that comes with that. They don't have it.
Yeah.
So how can they possibly relate?
Totally.
When your body is going through an upheaval like childbirth or menopause.
Yeah.
So I think that I've been talking about doing podcast episodes with men who have women in their lives who are in those places.
That would be cool.
To go like, what's going on at your house?
Right.
You know, because I have hot flashes at night when I sleep. And I get like legitimately like have to change my clothes.
Yep. Like you just took a shower.
It's awful. And Bert won't let me sleep with a fan.
Why?
Because the fan makes his allergies bananas.
Oh.
So, and I don't have allergies, but then I'm just like I'm sleeping in soup.
Yeah.
I'm like sleeping in my own soup.
Yeah.
So I've had to find this like little mini fan that just hits me on the face. That doesn't bother his sleep. But I'm like, I get it with your allergies, man. But could you fucking meet me halfway here?
Yeah, get an inhaler. I don't know. Like, what do we do?
Help me. It's, yeah. So anyway. I think talking about that stuff for you as a comic is a great plan. I love it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's a lot of material for sure.
It'll never stop.
It's funny that you say the pamphlet thing. So I'm like, there's a damn infographic for everything on Instagram right now, just not anything related to what we're talking about.
Yeah. Is your wife in menopause? Read this.
Right.
You know, did your wife just have a baby? Read this.
Yeah.
Did your kid just leave for college? Read this, you know?
Also, what men don't understand about sex for us, at least for me, is like if I don't feel hot, I'm not having or I'll have like the worst, like most missionary sex ever, and I'm never gonna get into it. But like I would imagine after having a baby, you feel the most unattractive you've ever felt. And so like to think that you can just like zip right back into it is like a mental fuck.
It is a mental fuck. And I'll tell you this, I talked to Bert about this quite a lot because of what's happening to my body in menopause. I felt that way after childbirth, but I also gave myself a little more of a pass. But at this point, my psyche is not giving my body a pass.
Oh.
And my psyche is fighting with itself because the logical part of me understands that I'm beautiful, that I'm in great shape.
Yeah, you look
that
amazing.
I look great, that I look for my age, I'm a fucking rock star.
Definitely.
I will never be in a bikini again, ever. Not ever. There's too much that's loose, right?
I'm barely in a bikini, so I know.
But in the sex piece you're talking about, Bert constantly says, I think you're beautiful. And I think, what the fuck are you looking at? My shoulder? So my shoulder looks good. But once you start moving over here, the décolletage is all wrinkly. The boobs are saggy. Like my elbow looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, what are you focusing on? And I think for Bert, at least, I don't know if this is, I mean, men are so visual.
Yeah.
They fall in love with you for the visual piece, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But what Bert keeps saying to me, which is lovely, is that he's really safe and comfortable. And the thing about hot girls is that, at least for him, he never felt safe. And he never could totally relax if there was like super hot girl he was trying to hook up with because it made him feel his own inadequacies a little stronger.
Interesting.
So now we've been together so long. He sees my body. Like after we had a baby, he had a joke about it for a while. He would go, I did that to that body.
Oh.
I did that.
I like that.
Right?
I like that phrasing because it's true.
Yeah, it's true. You knocked me up.
Right.
I had a baby. Everything's stretched. And it ain't gonna go back the way it was.
Right.
It's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
So you blow a balloon up enough, it stays kind of like saggy, right? It's the same theory, not with every woman, but for me, that definitely was true. So his whole perspective was, I did that to her. So that's
like
mine.
That's really nice.
Right?
Yeah, that's really sweet.
But he has no part in menopause.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah. But I mean, it is what it is. It's life.
But what are we going to do? I'm the same way you are, where I go, I don't feel sexy.
Mm-hmm.
Don't actually touch me. Like I don't do that. That's not how I behave.
Yeah.
But it is how I feel emotionally
Right.
sometimes. And how do you reconcile that?
I know it's so hard because you have to like make that mind shift more than change anything about your body. It's just, you got to like change how your mind's thinking about your body. And it's crazy.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
That we do it to ourselves.
We do.
Because he's not asking me to do that. Bert's
Right.
telling me every day, I think you're sexy as hell. I love everything about what's happening. And I go, but I don't feel that way. I feel like not that way. Like entirely not that way. So I got lucky in that I have a man who isn't someone who goes, it's all visual.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, you'll never be able to hang on to a man that's all visual because not you in particular, but everybody won't, because then there's always going to be a hotter girl behind you.
yes.
So there's that too. I also think like in general with comedians, because they, they're still men.
Yeah.
So they do get attracted to you at first, and that's probably how you start talking. But like once they actually like someone in the way that they think and the way that, we make them laugh or whatever it is, I do see a trend more where comedians stick with the ladies that they chose for longer than average men.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because they realize like that part is so rare.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a million hot girls out there in both of the cities that we live in and, everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
And I genuinely just don't think that they want to like talk to them. They're like, but I'm not interested in what you have to say. So
that's a really, really interesting perspective because Bert jokes all the time about his second wife.
yeah.
He's totally joking. And I'm like, you would not know what to say to it. You're right, 100% right. The reason that they are with you, or the reason Mark's with you, the reason Bert's with me, is because I get him.
Right.
I get everything. I get the warts, I get the pain in the ass, and I get the brilliance and the beauty and the art. And I get the sensitivity. I get the anxiety.
Right.
I get it.
And they also like, they have to like have these spaces where they feel confident saying whatever. And especially when they're working on a bit, like Mark will be like, have you ever thought about how Nazis, da-da-da? And I'm like, Like, I'm not just sitting there being like, I can't believe you would bring that up. That's insensitive, which I feel like a lot of women, especially my age, would do. And so I'll like run with him with this idea that's horribly insensitive and terrible.
Yes.
And he'll shape it into something. But I'm like, even just that, like the open-mindedness that women dating comedians have to have, because they're going to say things that maybe even some of my friends that are progressives or whatever would like watch Mark's material and be like, that's homophobic or whatever. And I'm like, he's just trying to be funny and it's getting a laugh. So lighten up, I guess.
Yeah. And if it sounds homophobic, perhaps it's challenging someone who is really homophobic.
True.
To think about that. That's
Right.
my perspective about comedy entirely.
Yeah, I find like this is definitely true for a lot of comedians that I've seen, that some of the nice guy comedians on stage are not so nice off stage, and vice versa. So if you're touching on some of the more like controversial topics on stage, typically, you like if you say things that could be perceived as homophobic, you're not a homophobe. Because if you were, you wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Yes.
It's like the Bill Cosby effect.
Yes.
So Bill Cosby, famously, really nice guy, seemingly.
Yes. Not so nice.
Not so nice.
I agree with you. Absolutely. There are very few people. Yeah, I agree with you. In my experience, has been my same experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that talking about stuff that's off topic. I love Mark's comedy.
It's fun.
It's so fun and funny and absurd.
Right.
And come on, you have to know what he's saying is absurd.
Exactly.
If you don't, then you really need to get in touch with some like funny bone in your body.
Truly.
I mean, same with Bert, or I go, if you can't watch a guy without a shirt talk shit about people in his own family, you got problems.
Yes, exactly. Lighten up. It's fun. It's a good time. Everyone's enjoying it.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
There was this girl on Instagram who she got mad about a joke that Mark said, and then he just blocked her immediately. Like she was all over his comments on like every single one of his posts, like saying all this crazy stuff, saying that he was saying bad things about indigenous people. I don't know.
What?
Who even knows? And then, so he blocked her, and then she came over to my page and was like harassing me and being like, you must be ashamed of your husband. How embarrassing of you for like all this stuff, saying that I was like this like racist apologist. I was like,
a racist apologist.
That's
okay.
me. You know me.
Yeah.
But I was like,
yeah, that lines up. Not at all. That's
like
ridiculous.
Looking at this girl, and I was like, it's so funny to me that you are attacking some guy for telling a joke, and then he's not going to hear you. So you go over to his wife's page and are now attacking her. And in your mind, you're the good guy in this scenario. It's very funny how the internet works.
It is. Lots of right fighters, huh?
Yeah.
Lots of right fighters. I find it interesting. I feel like if you're living your life and you're working your job, you don't have time to do that.
Right.
So if you have time to post negative comments and shit on people, you should evaluate what you're doing with your time.
Yeah, get a hobby.
Get a hobby. Get a job that makes you feel happy.
Right.
So I think I've left one negative Yelp review in my entire life. You just don't do it.
Yeah.
Unless it's something so egregious that you're like, everybody needs to know this person is a scam artist or something.
Right. Something like that.
Come
yeah,
on.
my cat got a very bad haircut recently.
Wait, hold on. Why are you cutting your cat's hair?
Because it's a Maine Coon, and it gets a bunch of like knots on it. So we have to get it shaved every once in a while. The knots shaved off. And I brought it to this groomer, and it was crazy. Like he came back looking crazy. And Mark was like, he's like, I'm against like writing reviews, but maybe you should, so that, because I paid a lot of money for it too. And I was like, I'm not going to do this because, first of all, I gave this guy a tip and said thank you very much when this was in person. So now I'm not going to go behind a computer and be like, my cat looks like shit.
Yeah, right.
Because people do that all the time with comedy. Like I'll, get off stage and people will be like, oh, great set. We had so much fun, blah, blah. And then, 20 minutes later, it'll be like, this girl was joking about rape and it made me feel uncomfortable. I'm like, who? Because all these people said I did a great job. So it's like,
That's weird.
I don't want to be that person.
Yeah, I agree. That's integrity.
I actually don't even have a rape joke. I don't know why I use that.
I was going to say you were raped?
Yeah, no. God, no.
No. Oh, that's a whole nother podcast, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, you're right. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't give someone a tip and then.
Yeah.
That's very cowardly.
Very cowardly.
Yeah.
Because if to his face, I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
That would be a different story maybe, but I still probably wouldn't because whatever.
Because you just don't.
Because you just don't.
Just
Shaving
why?
a cat is not an easy job, okay?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's like a very hard job.
Yeah, you could lose an eye.
Yeah.
The cats are like not happy about that stuff. No. So you do you still live in the same building or close to Matthew Broussard?
No, we're moving close to Matthew Broussard. Yeah, and we live in the West Village now. So I don't know if you know this or not, but I have a podcast with Matthew Broussard's girlfriend.
No, I did not. No, I did not.
Yeah, so his girlfriend, or actually they're fiancés now.
Yes, I know.
They got engaged. She proposed to him, which I think is very cool.
Amazing.
And that's definitely like very much their relationship too. She's she's an alpha, but she her and I have a podcast together that we've had for a few years called Risque Business News. So we wanted to do something a little different. So it's basically like business scandals and stuff like that. So
That's cool.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
Yeah.
We have on some comedians, but we also have on like, I don't know if you heard this in the news, but there was some little kid. He's like 19 years old and he tracks rich people's jets and then posts it on the internet, which is like very unethical for a lot of reasons. But he was doing that to Elon Musk, and Elon Musk was about to sue him. It's like 19-year-old kid. And we had him on the podcast. So it's been a lot of fun.
Why was he doing that?
I don't know. And I still don't know. I interviewed this kid and he was just like, yeah, I just thought it would be like interesting. And I was like, why?
But why? What's the purpose of that information? That's so fascinating.
I don't know.
That's a cool podcast.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun doing it. So
that's
been
great.
Good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Matthew's a great guy.
Yeah, he's the best. He's so type A.
Isn't
sits
he?
up very straight.
He's from Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was brought up right, as
Yes.
they say. He was brought up right. He's so great.
Very
I didn't know
polite.
you. For some reason, I thought you cat sat each other's cats.
We do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
But for some reason, that made me think you lived like down the hall. I don't know why.
Yeah, no, I wish. That'd be really convenient. But yeah, we cat sit each other's cats and they get along really well, which is super weird. But I think it's because their cat's an inbred. Well, yes, probably. But their cat is a full bred and so is mine. And so I think that they are inbred. So they're like so dumb that they don't know they're supposed to hate each other.
That's
So they just hang out.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a really good situation we have going on because we both are traveling so much. So we just drop off our cats at kindergarten together.
Oh, that's adorable. Will you do the same with kids, you think?
Hopefully. I don't know if they want kids or not, but yeah, I'll drop my kids off with them. Be like, bye.
Here's the cat and the kid.
They're like, we specifically didn't want kids. How did we end up with these kids?
Just for the weekend.
Yeah.
I'll be back Monday. That's really funny.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you doing in LA?
So I was doing shows in Seattle and then I flew down to do some shows here and now I'm here. And then I'm going back to New York
Today?
tonight. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Have you done any podcasts while you were here besides mine?
No, I should have like scheduled that better, but I didn't. I just did a few shows in Venice, which was nice.
Okay.
Yeah, it was good.
That's
So
really cool.
I've actually never performed in LA before now.
No?
No. There's a lot of singers on these shows. Probably not at like
Really?
the store and stuff, or maybe there is at the store, but at these indie shows, there was like a lot of ukuleles. which
Like comedy singers?
Yeah, comedy
Okay.
singers. But
Got
I
it.
was not expecting that. And I was like, huh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't really see that much at the Comedy Store, but I am by no stretch of the means there all the time.
Yeah.
Drop in every once in a while with Bert, but
Mhm.
yeah, not here so much. So what do you think will happen when you have kids? Do you think you'll continue to do stand up, or in what capacity do you think you'll continue to do stand up?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's one of those things that I'll cross that bridge when I get to it.
Yeah.
Because right now I'd love to say yes, definitely. But I think like we were talking about, like your whole hormones, your body, everything changes. And maybe just my priorities will shift entirely. And it's just
Mhm.
not going to be a priority for me. What Mark keeps reminding me of is he's like, comedy's not going anywhere. Like you can take a year off, you can take 6 months off, and you can just get back into it. Like you
Mhm.
haven't, at this point, I have an act. I have, people that know me, people that would obviously understand too if I was taking some time off to literally nurse my children.
Right.
And so I think like I would love to say, yes, I'll definitely come back to it. I don't know how I'll feel in the moment though. And I'm open to
smart, Mae. You're so smart.
that. Oh, thank you.
You're very wise. That's impressive. You're really, really wise because you don't really know.
No.
Mm-mm.
I'd
Yeah.
love to do something. I still want to be in comedy in some capacity, whether that's like making another podcast or doubling down on the podcast I have with Laura. I don't want to be like totally out of it,
Mm.
but I just feel like, being realistic with children, which I definitely want, and that's my priority, is especially with Mark traveling so much, it's like one of us has to be the stability.
Yeah, totally.
You know, I can't fuck off to Seattle and do some random ass shows out there when I have babies.
Yeah, totally. That's what happened with me and Bert. I was a writer before we had kids.
Oh, yeah?
I was a writer for years. And then I was like, well, he's not making enough as a comic. I'm not making enough as a writer. So the choice would be Bert can't do anything else.
Yeah.
Like he can't. There's nothing else he could do.
Could you imagine him at like a corporate job? That would be the weirdest parallel universe ever.
You know what? Here's the jobs I think Bert would. Okay, let's play this game. This is an awesome game. What jobs would Mark or Bert have if comedy were not available?
Okay. So Mark always says he would be a UPS driver. I don't know why he's so drawn to this profession. But he's like, I like that they wear shorts. I'm like, that's it? It's just you have to wear shorts.
Strangely, I can sort of see him doing that. Being friendly, but not having to get into any kind of real relationship with the people on his route, right?
I guess.
I can sort of see that.
I don't know.
I think Bert would be a chef.
Oh, yeah.
Or I think he might not be a really good trial lawyer.
Oh.
Because he can argue like he can argue his point in such a creative and convincing way.
Yeah, you would know better than anyone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So he'll get me so confused in an argument and I'll have to go, hold on. Let's go back to the why we started talking about this. And then I have to constantly do that. So I think he'd be probably a really good trial lawyer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That would be a crazy parallel universe.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah, hiring Bert as the trial lawyer.
Right? Well, I mean, he's into like performing. He's very performative as a human being. He's really convincing. He's a good storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really smart. And yeah, he does not like to lose an argument.
I feel like he's also an incredibly loyal person.
He is.
So if he really believes in his client and believes in their innocence, then he'll figure out a way to make it work. And he would like work really hard at that.
He would. You're right. Anything else you think Mark would do besides you? What do you think Mark would do?
Oh, well, I think he would be a good filmmaker, but that's still kind of an entertainment. So maybe that's not quite as different. Right. I think he would get fired from any sort of corporate job. I really do. I think he would get fired for HR reasons or just like slacking off. Like he cannot do something he's not interested in. Cannot do it.
Yeah. I have 2 of those at my house.
Yeah.
Yep. I have 2. So fun to have 2.
Yeah.
One's enough.
And you're like, please just like math.
So be prepared when you have children, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they will partly be Mark. And so the things that are challenging with Mark, the things that are challenging about Bert, which actually make Bert successful in what he does, are completely, doubly, triply challenging in the traditional educational system.
Yeah.
It fucking sucks to have a kid that does not march to the beat of any available drum.
They're making their own drum.
Yes. And to watch it affect them negatively is it's probably the hardest part of parenting I've experienced.
I can imagine. And I was not good at school. And neither was Mark. So I cannot imagine our kids are just going to like be thrilled about academics. That would be really weird. Yeah. But that's one thing I really admire about Mark's parents actually is that his older brother was very, very like standardized test style smart. Like very good. He went to like NASA camp and like things like that. He's into math and sciences. I think he's like a computer programmer now. And Mark is Mark. And they didn't try to fit them both in the same square. And they put Mark immediately into a lot of like performing arts things. And they recognized that they had 2 very different children. And so I think that's pretty cool.
Yes.
Instead of being like, you have to be just like your brother. It's like, he's never going to be like that.
Right.
And, you know, they forced him to graduate college, but I think he dropped out of like a few places, but they were like, you have to get a degree. But, school was definitely not his forte.
It's hard as a parent to watch. I mean, I did great at school. I was not an exceptional student, but I had no trouble in school.
Okay.
And Georgia was the same. Not an exceptional. Mom was like a B student.
Yeah.
I had a 3-point something when I graduated. Georgia was the same. Just a typical student.
Mm-hmm.
But Isla's dyslexic. Bert was dyslexic. And to watch the two kids move through the same system, even though I looked into other schools for Isla, they just weren't working for her. Like nowadays, or at least I haven't found it in LA, they're either a private school we could not even have possibly afforded, or they're schools that are so focused on the learning disability, everything else is left out.
Right.
My kid is not her learning disability.
Yeah.
She is a regular kid who has trouble reading.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. Socially, academically, emotionally, she doesn't have any of the other challenges. She just needs help reading.
Yeah.
You know, and that it's still within the system is super challenging. I'm so glad she got into college. And I'm so glad we hired somebody who said, here's the expectation for her based on her grades. Mm-hmm. And don't worry about what anybody else is saying.
Yeah.
Just go in that expectation. And we were like, that's all we need is just someone, please, just get us in that expectation so that she can feel powerful and, you know.
No, that's great.
Feel her real worth. So she's one of the first of her friends to have gotten an acceptance letter to the college she wanted to go to. It's an art school. Because they get it. Yeah. So, I don't know. Anyway,
I will say, I mean, speaking back on like New York and people being so impressed by like prestige and stuff like this. This is maybe an exception to the rule, but a lot of people I know that went to these prestigious colleges, they're not doing as well as some of my other friends that like, I went to just some like random rinky-dink place. And I would say like, I'm more well-adjusted in a lot of ways than some of the people that went to, you know, Princeton and these crazy places. Because I think what ends up happening with kids that are like very, very good students is that they see a path and they're like, okay, I have to do X, Y, and Z, and then I get rewarded at the end. And then in real life, it doesn't work like that.
That's
Especially
right.
if you're going down any sort of entrepreneurial route, you have to just get creative. You got to like get used to rejection. You have to get used to like, you could have the best laid plans, they might not work out and you have to pivot. But they just get so wrapped up in like, if I put this energy into it, I should get this outcome. I keep hitting my mic.
Okay.
And I find that like that's something to consider too with kids that you know, like for me, like I was like, oh, I got into this like not that great school and, you know, woe is me and whatever. And my dad was like, who gives a shit? Like this has nothing to do with your outcome for life. At all.
No.
But you think it does at that time in your life.
No. I think that's the problem is society, maybe not even all of society, but the educational system tells you it's important. They're telling you, you must. And at home, we're like, you actually don't have to.
No,
you don't have to go to college.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You can't just lay on the couch. But I don't have a college degree. I went to college, but I never graduated. Bert took 7 years to get an undergrad.
Yeah.
7 years because he couldn't pass classes. So we're doing okay.
Yeah, you're doing fine.
We made it work.
A little north of okay, I would say.
We made it work. So, but it's hard to have her try to be in a peer group where our philosophy is not the norm. The norm is you got to go to this great college. I completely agree with you. There's actually a great book called David and Goliath about that exact concept, how they found that kids who were doing well in lesser schools were more successful than kids who were doing well at a Yale or a Harvard because they don't have a very realistic picture of what life does. Obviously, that's not for every person who went to Yale or Harvard or these other schools. But in general, the research they were showing is far more successful people that just came through a regular kind of college route.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, isn't it? It was a really great book. The book talks a lot about dyslexia, which is why I read it. It was about far more than dyslexia, but I read it because of that, because I have a kid that's dyslexic. And they were like, yeah, dyslexics people, their brains are 5% larger than ours, than people who aren't.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of dyslexic people I know are very smart. Phil Hanley is dyslexic famously.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And I think he's very sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many people are dyslexic. So who gives a shit about that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how can people find you if they're looking for you?
Well, I have an Instagram, obviously, Mae_Planert. I did not change my last name yet.
No.
No.
Are you going to?
I don't know. Actually, I don't know. At this point, I'm like, whatever. But so this is an aside, but Mark's mom kept her maiden name and my mom changed her name. And they both have like kind of strong opinions about it. So I'm going to get judged either way.
Right?
So yeah.
You're not safe. Can you hyphen it?
Yeah, but Planert Normand, can you think of a worse combination?
No,
That's like pretty awful.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, I hate it.
That's
so
a mouthful.
I don't know. I'll think about it for a little longer. But anyway, Mae_Planert is the name for now. And you can also find my podcast at Risque Business News. And that's on all platforms, Spotify, all that stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you came.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's nice. I think this is the longest conversation we've had.
I think so.
Yeah. We just talked here and there. Went to Jimmy Buffett together.
Oh, that was fun.
How fun was that?
How cool is it that we got to see him right before he passed?
I know.
Yeah.
I'm bummed that he died. You're much younger than me, but he was definitely part of the soundtrack of my childhood.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he was an icon, obviously, but those Gen Xers and older, he was really all about the 70s.
I love him.
You know.
I also love his message. He's just like, just chill out, man. Like, that's it.
Great message.
Yeah.
And you know,
it's not that serious.
It's not that deep.
Mhm.
Have fun. Drink a margarita. Have a cheeseburger.
Yeah.
Wear a flip flop. I
Right.
loved him. Yeah, no, that was a great time. We had a really good time.
So much fun. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Well, thank you for coming and doing this. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Of
I had a great
course.
time.
Yay.
All right.